Well, hello there. Welcome to a new video. This video here is going to be a ranking video. It's a video type of video that I've wanted to try to do for a while. So, hope you guys just sit back, relax, and enjoy this video. So, this ranking is going to be I'm going to be basically ranking the entire Dead Space franchise in terms of the games. There are 7 games in total, so I'll be ranking them from worst to best. Now, reminding all of you that this is my opinion and my ranking video. If you want to make your own ranking video, go right ahead, go nuts. But this is mine. So, that said, number 7, the worst game in this franchise, in my opinion, at least, is Dead Space Ignition. This was a puzzle game released not too long before or right alongside Dead Space 2. You were playing as Franco, the character who wakes Isaac up in Dead Space 2. Overall, other than, before I get into the gameplay, other than some pretty neat graphic novel style cutscenes, the overall game is and was a giant dud for me personally. I like puzzles, don't get me wrong, but an entire game dedicated to them in this universe just doesn't make a lot of sense. This game could have easily been its own thing, and that's the main thing that's keeping it so low for me. It's the fact that it could have been its own thing. It had nothing to do with the way it plays out, other than a couple characters and the cutscenes showing necromorphs, gore, to that nature. Could have been its own thing. Just overall, it was very boring and bland. And a Dead Space game should not be boring or bland. So, but yeah, that is number 7. Number 6 is a game that I unfortunately had not been able to play, but that said, I have watched people play it on YouTube and I have researched it, so I do know what happens. And that game is Dead Space Mobile. Now, ironically enough, for it being a mobile game, it looked pretty damn good for a Dead Space game. So, the story is a prequel. Well, I think it's a prequel to Dead Space 2, but I think it also might be taking place at the same time as Ignition. But you are playing as a character called the Vandal, who's revealed to be a woman named Carrie Norton. So that's pretty cool. Being able to play as a woman for the first time in this franchise. So props for that. But you are basically led astray by unitologists into damaging and basically sabotaging certain systems on the sprawl to basically help move the outbreak from the mines up into the sprawl itself proper. And once you find out that you've been led astray to do that, you as Vandal have to basically team up with Hans Tideman, not literally, but through like communication, or to go about and try to fix certain things to contain the infection as much as possible. So it concludes with her having to go to the core of the sprawl and stabilize it, and in doing so, you have to fight I believe, a hive mind. So that was pretty interesting and cool. So overall, it's number 6, just for the fact that A, I never got a chance to play it, and B, it's a mobile game. If they had released it normally, like on Xbox Live or PSN, it probably would have been higher, because I would have had a chance to actually play it, and it probably would have felt better with a controller. So that is number 6. Number 5, and this is where I can actually hold games up. I can't hold those first 2 up because they're digital. So, but number 5, Dead Space Extraction. This is a really good prequel to the first game. It is a Unreal shooter, which isn't my. I'm not a huge Unreal shooters fan, but I do like them. They're just not my top genre. But overall, very good game, showing you how the infection and outbreak starts on the Ishimura and the overall colony of Aegis-7. So the answers that it gave me were well done, and the characters were pretty intriguing as well. A group of them actually were able to escape the Ishimura and show up later on, but really solid game, in my opinion. Very solid prequel, but it's number 5. Number 4. Now this one, I'm probably going a little bit of a tangent rant on a bit at the beginning, but for me, number 4 is going to be Dead Space 3. This is the game that many people would have at the bottom of their list, for sure. Me, no. Dead Space 3 is a very good game. I've gone on record saying that it's a good game many times. But I will agree that yes, it has issues. However, the main complaints that I see people bitching about are the fact that they say that it's not scary, that there's co-op, and that the crafting system was just a way from the shove-in microtransactions, which I will agree to that. I will agree to that point. However, in terms of the game not being as scary, have you tried looking at it from Isaac's point of view? Isaac has had to deal with 2 different outbreaks already, both times fighting for his life, barely escaping. I'm sure most of us, if we were put in that same situation, would be like, you know what? I've already dealt with these things twice already on 2 different occasions. Not much can scare me anymore. Yeah, you might be, feel a little bit fearful, yes, but I mean, super scared is it like the first game? I doubt it. I don't know. I just don't see that being the case. Just because the fact, again, 2 different times dealing with this. I know it makes sense in my opinion, but as far as there being co-op, yeah, that's kind of annoying that they included that. But what's nice is that it's not forced. It's not mandatory. You can play the game by yourself, no problem. So, props for that, because they could have forced it, but they didn't. Now, as far as the bench situation, yes, I will agree that the bench, probably not having started out as a way to shove transaction into the game, that's what it became. However, minus the microtransactions, the bench crafting system is a good way to remind people that Isaac is an engineer. He's not a super soldier. And if given the opportunity, as well as the components and parts, he more than likely would have upgraded his weapons and crafted new ones. So, for that, it makes sense, and is true to Isaac's character that he would do that. So, but yeah, 3 overall is a good game. The story is pretty solid, basically trying to find the marker homeworld and turn the markers off for good. Now, I like the base game. I like the base game. What I don't like about it is the DLC. Which is ironic, because some people I've talked to like the DLC. I don't. The DLC for Dead Space 3, Awakened, I do not like, mainly because it takes everything you just did in the main game, which is to find the marker homeworld, turn the markers off, and end this threat for good. Basically takes all of that all the work you just went through, and says nope, and tosses it out, and makes everything you just did be for nothing. Which may work for some games. This doesn't really work for that. Also, I know there's video game logic. I'm fully aware of that. However, There is no possible way I can believe that after Isaac and Carver defeated the Brethren Moon above top Atlantis, after destroying it, they would survive free falling from such a high height back down to the planet of top Atlantis. A planet, to remind you, that has sub-zero temperature, basically. That they would survive not only the free fall, but they would survive the sub-zero temperatures of the planet with broken rigs. What? I'm sorry. What? No. Just no. But the DLC aside, the main game, Dead Space 3, is very good, and I highly recommend it. If you're somebody who has played before and you disagree with my points and thought it was a shitty game and it sucked, blah, 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 give it another chance. You might see where I'm coming from. But as of this moment, it is number 4 in my ranking. Number 3, and this one is probably going to be the one where I get yelled at. Number 3 for me is Dead Space, the original. Now, I make it a yearly tradition to replay this trilogy every October. I know these games like the back of my hand. So that being said, I've played the first game many times. Many times. That being said, over time, especially after playing the remake, I've noticed that the original game has some pretty solid flaws with it. Mainly being, the first one being that Isaac doesn't talk. Now, at the time, I realized that was a design choice they made to make people, basically go through this game as Isaac in his shoes. I get that. But it just feels very weird playing it now and having him not respond to Kendra or Hammond, not having him respond to the horrors that surround him. Just very odd. Just feels very odd, not of place in 2023. Secondly, the zero-G aspect of the first game is it's very, again, at the time, it was fine. But now it just doesn't hold up. The whole pointing your weapon at a spot or an area, and then when you find the right spot, just yeeting yourself to it, it just doesn't work as well as it did. Also, the last chapter of the game is very not boring, it's just very monotonous. The whole guiding the marker back to the pedestal while fighting off a horde of enemies. It hasn't held up as well as it, I'm sure it was amazing back then, but now it has not held up as well as it should have. Now, with all that being said, I still love the game. It's still a great game. It's just those factors. Also, another factor, before I forget, the fact that the Ishimura, you're basically put into chapters. You can never explore. You can never go back. If you missed something in a previous chapter, too late. You can't go back and get it. You're fucked. So all those things combined hold it down for me. It's still a great game. I still love it, but just those things have brought it down for me personally. So, but that is number 3. Number 2 is going to be Dead Space Remake. Now, a lot of those things that I just said that hold the original game, down a few pegs for me, get fixed in the remake. Isaac speaks. He reacts to the shit going around him. He's not just standing there doing. He's reacting. He talks to Hammond and Kendra. He responds to them. He answers questions they might have for him. Things like that. The Ishimura being sort of open world where you're allowed to go back and backtrack and explore is really damn good. It makes the shit feel more alive than just, you're put into chunks of the ship. The zero-G is much better in the remake. It is based on Dead Space 2's zero-G, which was a major step up from the first game. Because again, that first Zero G, just the whole finding spot, aiming, finding it, eating yourself, just doesn't it felt very clunky. This felt more smooth and natural. Also, the story additions to the game, which wasn't they didn't add a crazy amount of stuff, but the main, which I had mentioned this in my discussion of the remake a couple days ago, the main thing they added to the remake that really props it up for me in terms of over the first game is the fact that that little bit of character development between Isaac and Nicole, them fighting, basically Isaac blaming her for his parents' death, which it wasn't her fault, but his grief and all that, it just was very well done and very well executed. The last chapter of the game is the same with the guiding the marker, but what's a little bit nice is in the original you had to do it by hand. You had to use your kinesis and guide it by hand. Stop, fight a horde, move it along more. Stop, fight a horde. In this, it's the moving of the marker is automatic, so you don't have to worry about that. You can focus on the horde. You don't have to just move, stop, fight, move, stop, fight. It's automatic, so that's nice. So overall, I'm putting the Dead Space remake at number 2. With that said, and by elimination, you can all figure out what is my number 1. And for me, my number 1 game of this franchise is going to be Dead Space 2. I cannot wait for the remake of Dead Space 2 that's most likely going to be happening. It's my favorite game of this franchise. Now, what I love about Dead Space 2 so much is the fact that not just that they went bigger, that could be like an easy answer, but the fact is they did it right. They could have just set the sequel on another abandoned ship, and be done with it. But they didn't. They went bigger, which, again, doesn't always work, but it works quite well for the sequel. They set it on an actual colony. Yes, there was a colony in the first game, but it was very sparsely populated. It was mostly miners and CEC personnel. It wasn't like actual families and actual other just regular day-to-day people. The Sprawl changes that. They introduced a couple new necromorph types. The Puker, the Tripod, the Stalker. Actual new enemy variants, which is good. Also, the main thing that I liked about it is the fact that it delved into psychological horror. It wasn't just, oh god, more monsters. Or, in this case, some new monsters. It wasn't just that. Again, psychological horror. They delved deep into Isaac's psychology, and along basically the whole main point of the game, or the main, thing of the game is Isaac doesn't really know what's real and what's not. He's having hallucinations of Nicole, which is basically which is manifestations of his guilt of not being able to save her in time. All that stuff combined, like I said, new enemy types. Isaac actually speaks in the second game. The psychological horror aspect, making this on an actual populated colony, very close to Earth, as a matter of fact, all hits home and brings it together in a very solid, very good package that I really do enjoy. Now, there's also some DLC for the second game. It is Dead Space 2 Severed, and it deals with some characters from Extraction, Gabe Weller and Lexine. Gabe is basically he's security on the Sprawl, and he starts off with trying to he's in the mines, and he finds out this is where the outbreak is starting, and he has to try to make his way back to Lexine to save her because she is being taken by I'm not try to spoil it, but the DLC is very good. It gives answers to where these characters from Extraction were at, what happens to them. So, very good. I did enjoy it for a DLC. It was very good. But overall, this is my personal ranking of the Dead Space franchise in terms of games. But ask me any other, like I said, Dead Space 2 is my number one, is my favorite. But ask me on another day, it could, the remake or the first game could, they could flip. But that's how much I love this franchise. These games, yes, they're ranked, personal opinion, but I love this franchise overall as a whole. So, that said, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the future with probably some more rankings. I'm going to try to do a Resident Evil ranking when the remake of 4 comes out, but it just depends on how, what time-wise I have. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.